In this episode, Ryan and I look back over 2022, and we beat up a little bit on economists and financial planning in general, but we had fun doing so. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Banking with Life podcast. I'm your host, James Neathery.
I'm your co-host, Ryan Griggs.
Here we are in December 2022. This will be our Christmas episode. And
last episode of the year of 2022?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. I guess
Rounding
the next
it
one
out
will be a New Year's episode.
Hence the stylish hats.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the beautiful Christmas tree.
Set does look nice. Props to the AV gentlemen for throwing all that together.
Yeah, no question. They do work hard. They make it look easy, I know, but it's a lot of work back there. All right, so Mr. Griggs listened to music on the way down, so he showed up empty-handed.
No, I did take time to sort of reflect back on the year. I mean, this is a Christmas episode, final episode of the year. Thinking about this year in relation to the previous years, of course, much better this year than 22 and 21 because we can go to private businesses and get on planes and travel and exercise those little freedoms we used to have. So I think to be positive is a good year. It's a great year. And better, I mean, business-wise, I'm very thankful that things are improving each year. And
wonder why that is. I mean, don't jump over that because, we're in the life insurance business. We write life insurance. And I want to spend a moment here because I talk to a lot of younger people, not even younger people. I talk to a lot of people that are either new or want to get into the life insurance business.
Yeah.
And they always focus on the pay, which commission, is a bad word in the English language, but we all get paid. Some commissions, some salaries, distributions, whatever it's called. And so that's the reason I kind of want to bring it out. Why do you think your business is getting better each year? Which it should, right, if you're doing the right thing, in my opinion. But can you expand on that?
I have some initial thoughts. I don't know if I have the full answer, but I think part of it has to do with the podcast has been out, just more and more time, and that just compounds over time. It's not as frequent as some of those daily world events shows that, or even weekly, right? I'm on every other week, maybe more time. So, and like I said at the client event in October, I mean, I really don't like to repeat myself, and
well, some people in the back can't hear sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we talk about the arrival syndrome and continuing to push the frontiers of knowledge and understanding, and I've got the PhD program. So I like to think that when I come to speak on these episodes that there are new and interesting things that add to what's already been said. And then as that accumulates over time and people have the opportunity to find the podcast or eventually find the podcast and go through all of that, like so many of our people do, go and watch everything, sometimes more than once, I think they get an opportunity to get to know me. I mean, I've had several clients who, over the past couple months in particular, they're like, I feel like it's not unfair, but unbalanced. It's like they're telling me that they know all about me, and I don't know anything about them. And it's like, that's true. I'm catching up. So there's lots of questions, and so all that helps. But then I think what has surprised me most, and I think has been a big part of the ongoing growth, has been the mechanic series, the whole life insurance mechanic series from the perspective of Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept on my YouTube channel. I mean, I did that because I was, it's not like I didn't have this, generous, it wasn't, I wasn't going out to do good in the world, really. It was just, I'm kind of getting tired of repeating the same stuff all the time. And so I did that series to put it all together systematically and deeper than I usually can. It's 8 hours long. I'm not going to spend 8 hours on the phone just prior to applications with every new client. You know,
Right.
that's a lot. And to add slides and the bullets and all that adds rigor and more sequential and more systematic. And a lot of people have said a lot of nice things about that, which is great. And so I think that's helped people a lot. And those people who like that style, who want to learn, who for whom that sort of attraction-oriented kind of presence in the market, a more educational-oriented presence in the market is appealing, they come and get in touch. And perfect. I don't do any of the cold calls or the spam emails or we were just, before, I won't say names, but we watched, and God bless them, everyone's trying their best, but
Are they?
Well, everybody knows when you go on social media, you go on YouTube or TikTok, and someone just wants to sell something, you can tell. And it's really obvious.
Yeah.
And it's painful. So I don't know. I mean, it imputes back to you and then to Nelson. It's like, I caught it and it makes sense. And this is the right financial. This blends so well with what I've learned and teach in Austrian economics. It is capital theory practiced and implemented at the individual level. I had a client this past week, private equity guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, here we are selling life insurance, and the kind of person you would think would never even be interested is executive, C-suite, private equity, and is telling me about how when he hears me talk that the mindset is so similar.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But of course, somebody who works in that line of business would understand the value of control over and access to capital. Of course. And who doesn't want this regular upward pressure on their net worth every year for the rest of their life? Like, yeah, that all lines up.
I'm glad. I like that. We keep going.
Well, those are some initial. I mean, I think that's why. And
excuse me.
Next year the book will come out. I think that'll help more as well too. I mean, you've got such a heavy emphasis on ongoing service with the team here in Alvarado, and I'm absorbing that as well. I mean, the team's expanding. I've hired an assistant. Her name's Vicky. Some of you who are my clients, you'll be hearing from her. I think service is critical, and that's a whole frontier of opportunity for ongoing improvement. There's some projects that we'll announce in the new year that will add another layer to what it means to have a service relationship with a life insurance salesperson, but you're an IBC coach, So anyway, the point being that I think the future looks great. There's opportunity for even more improvement. And I think one thing that I just signed up for that International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. Mm-hmm. It's a total mouthful.
Yeah. Another designation or affiliation?
Yeah, not that I care, right? But they do publish the Journal of Personal Finance. And of course, you can't read the journal unless you join the organization. So I joined the organization. Because I want to talk more to, not necessarily for the sake of it, but we have IBC, and then there's this sort of a distinct, in some sense, domain of financial planning. And financial planning has this big old long history, and they've got the slogans and the sort of their own history of ideas and
the trademarks.
Yeah, all the stuff, you know. And I want to get into that further and bring an IBC informed kind of perspective to it in an academic setting.
Yeah, that needs to happen.
Yeah. I know Nelson wanted that to happen. He was very excited when Bob Murphy got involved with the Nelson Nash Institute. And
so the Austrians could get it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
The problem. Right here's a solution at the enemy level kind of deal.
Yeah.
That is exciting if people catch it.
I think one error with that approach was pursuing Austrians in particular.
No question.
Yeah. There are a lot of.
How far are we into this? I don't want to make my Austrian brethren, overly angry.
All four of them.
I love the Austrians. They have a. Never mind. Keep going.
Yeah, no,
closer than most.
They're all great.
Yeah.
Well, there are many who I have clients who are professors.
Yes.
Who maybe they've got a business degree, or maybe they are in psychology, or maybe they're in some related in finance. Maybe they're in a related, not economics per se, or maybe they are in economics in particular. But they don't go to the events. They wouldn't, they don't wake up in the morning and say, God, it's a great day to be an Austrian economist.
Yeah.
But the ideas are amenable. I think there's this guy, Andreessen, he's on Twitter, Martin Andreessen, I don't know. Hedge fund manager, very wealthy. He will tweet about Ayn Rand and Henry Hazlitt. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, is he going to call himself an Austrian? Well, I don't know. Well, the underlying ideas are there. And so, and I had in fact, this was a private equity guy. He's like, I went to the Mises.org website and I looked for Nelson's book. I couldn't find it.
Yeah. What?
Why was that?
Yeah, was he shocked? Kinda.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of course it should be there.
I mean, my thing to him was, well, they're very particular about not, appearing to support any particular donors, enterprise, or
talk about donors
activity. So they don't.
100-year anniversary of Mises was celebrated in Vienna, Austria, some years ago. Nelson was there. I had the pleasure of going, my wife and I, his beautiful wife, and he was the largest, and he was very proud of it. So as the Mises supporters, right? And I know him just, okay. He was very proud of the fact that he had the largest, the largest group.
Yeah.
There.
Well, significant donor. I mean, part of the sales of becoming your own banker went to Mises, so. Over
a long period of time, significant donor. Okay. So.
And I've talked about Gary North in the past. I mean, he's passed away now, but I mean, he's very prominent in Mises circles and was viscerally against both IBC and Whole Life, and you might as well throw in the people who sold Whole Life.
Absolutely. He was repugnant toward life insurance individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the idea that that IBC is Austrian economics in action, I mean, I would certainly agree with that. There are others who would not agree with that. Sometimes
probably
I think,
Austria.
Yeah, we use these terms that refer to groups, Austrian economists, Austrian economics people, or whatever, and you kind of assume that means that they're on board with a lot of the same ideas, and that's just not the case.
Right.
I mean, even within IBC, you get people who maybe they're IBC practitioners, or maybe they use the language of IBC online, and the assumption is, well, one IBC guy's the same as the next one, and it's like, yeah, no, maybe probably not.
So it applies in the Austrian world. One Austrian is not the same as another Austrian. So
for sure. But my point is, I think there's points to be made, to be particular, the idea that the role of the financial professional, what the financial professional does, the actual value add is poorly defined, if at all, in the industry. So often I get
it's very, very broad.
Right.
It's too broad.
So broad, it's might as well not even be defined kind of thing. I'm here to help you achieve your financial goals.
Yeah.
It's what does that mean? And what is it?
What product are you going to sell me?
Yeah. Well, and what makes somebody think that the individual has the right financial goals? Maybe part of what a financial professional should be doing is help determine what those goals should be. The idea that, I've got to have X. Oftentimes, if people are pushed, what's my financial goal? That's always framed, especially at the Big Four, in terms of X amount of dollars per year in this model, right? I'm going to save a certain amount.
In or out, or both. A certain amount of dollars in, so it can produce a certain amount of dollars out.
Outflow
at a certain
age,
time period.
Yeah, until some mortality date.
Yeah.
Right. All of which, is that the right way to think about? Like, wouldn't more be better? Like, why would you want to pin to a particular number? And then, of course, that framework all implies the standard accumulation framework. Max out your tax qualified plans, and then go get more tax qualified plans outside of the employer framework, and then what? I mean, and then what? Well, everybody is doing it, so that's okay. Let's do that. Qualified plans. The assumptions. Well, even in the whole financial framework. But keep going. I don't want to interrupt. But you're covering a lot of ground here in 15 minutes. But I think that's a problem. Is that I don't think the financial professional really has an articulated identity, and I think that if a client, a sort of dogged, deliberate, intentional client were to push the average financial professional on just what they do, I don't know that they'd be super satisfied with the answer.
They wouldn't, but I think the average financial professional believes they have a very clear identity, and it's very wrapped up into exactly, their philosophy, whether it's by term insurance and invest the difference. So I'm in love with the market or whatever that investment may be. And then how do I get the tax deduction today to do that? Or, the real estate or the private equity guy, it's all equities. And then it's like, an asset allocation,
Sure.
A dynamic model. I think that they have in their mind a very particular identity. But if the consumer pushed them on it, I think it would get verbally a little bit muddied.
Yes, to say the least. Yeah. But my point is, I think it's all about capital. It's all about, there's a sense in which that's what finance, to succeed financially, it's kind of what that is.
Nothing's going to happen without capital. Zero in the economic world. Zero is going to happen without capital.
Yeah.
Period.
And so, if that's true, if that's what it means to, if financial goals are capital goals, well, then there's, what dimensions are there of capital? Well, there's quality and quantity. How much of it do you have, and what's the nature of your access to and control over it? Right, and then it's about maximizing and doing so in a dynamic, long-term. You end up at IBC. That's just where it goes. If you're looking
for all the solutions, right, you absolutely end up at IBC, or you're operating off of preconceived ideas, whether they're original to you or they've been formed or, modified by others.
Yeah.
No question.
Or I'm going to do something else instead.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of idea, So failing to distinguish investing and capitalizing.
And it's interesting too. You've covered a lot of ground. So, why, verbally, or, why do you think the increase in your business and your general well-being has increased professionally? And the theme of what you kind of said was it's more of an educational process, your mechanic series. And then here, that you're on here at least 50% of the time, more than that. We're talking about life. We're talking about all kinds of things, but we're both life insurance agents, practitioners, personally practicing the infinite banking concept. And I've said it many times. I think the best banking policies, quote unquote, come through this office. So I'm a salesman, right? You're a salesperson, but we don't get on here and say, oh, there, you got to go buy this or you got to go buy that. Consider this, consider that. This is not a sales platform.
No.
It's not marketed. We don't track you down. We don't stock you.
No click funnel.
Everybody else does, all the other infinite banking concepts, not, the people that don't want to give Nelson Nash credit, or they want to take credit for this great idea, or they want to take credit for the improvement. Now they'll stalk you for watching because, just type in banking with life and see all the ads that come up, and they kind of rotate. So I guess sometimes they don't have as much money in one month as they do in another month. I don't know. But my point being is it's educational.
Yeah.
Right. And then I like that you mentioned the private equity guy. I was just this week.
Who I've really enjoyed talking with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Had several conversations this week. And because we do provide service, we actually do provide service. But in some of the service that has been provided over the last couple of weeks that led up to the conversation that I had this week within the office was the investment. How many investment professionals, investment advisors, hedge fund managers, like your guys' private equity guy, like we have a lot of them as clients.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, they have a problem. Like if they're successful, then that's a lot of cash flow, and it's not like particularly easy, a particularly easy case to accommodate because it's cash flows all over the place at different times with different degrees of predictability.
Yeah.
And so to build something quote unquote optimally suited to accommodate as much of that as possible.
I can do that all day long, sir.
Yeah. Well, they're fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a more engaging,
creative
case because and
they have to expand their thinking too, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you also talked about designations and affiliations, primarily the designation. And I'm like, why? And I asked that on purpose because I've got a lot of designations, affiliations, and I've let some go that I don't want to participate in anymore. And I was asked early on, it's like, why are you doing all that? I'm like, I want to be knowledgeable, right? I mean, I'm still a student of my faith, right? My profession. And that's part of knowledge in the profession. Not necessarily that you do whatever it is they, not necessarily buying into that model of financial planning where it's all accumulation in the equities, right? But it shows that someone's a student, I think, if they participate in those things.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And you'll accidentally learn something, even if you learn what not to do. If you're trying, making an effort.
Well, it's always good to know what's out there, too. I mean,
yeah.
Just what people are saying. I just think there's so much opportunity to take the idea of capital, monetary value of assets, and port it on into the world of financial planning. I mean, it's essentially IBC, but it's
polar opposites: the financial planning model and the infinite banking concept.
Yeah, we had a friend recently asked asked us both what my thoughts were on a certain kind of market portfolio that he wanted to put together.
A dividend portfolio is what he was potentially interested in building.
Yeah.
All right.
And this is another change that I've noticed over the last year, but over the last 5 in general, is just a growing intolerance for
on your part.
Oh yeah. I'm not, and I've had clients ask the same question, what do you think about the market? And it's like, well, I'm not securities licensed, can't give investment advice, don't want to, don't need that government permission slip, So these aren't any recommendations, but I've got economic background, so I'll tell you what I think economically. And it's a cartelized casino without the alcohol and the concerts and the food that you get at an actual casino. Plus, you get the lie that it's what's going to provide for your late life passive cash flow.
Is that how you responded to that gentleman?
I don't know if that's exactly what I said, but there's certainly along the same line.
Right.
It's like, I'm not interested. Look, you got money in the market, and I understand people have, and I think sometimes people who have listened to the podcast are like scared to tell me that they've got market holdings. And it's like, look, we all, whether you like the market or you don't, it's kind of beside the point. At the end of the day, we've all made financial decisions in the past that maybe would be different now if we knew then what we know now. And so we come with what we have. And because of the nature of the financial profession, we do end up, and we've talked about it before, we do end up with this, a lot of people end up with this sort of patchwork piecemeal collection of like a grab bag of different financial assets.
A lot of people, 99% of the people that I've sat down with over the last 31 years.
Yeah.
And why is that? They go to work, they have benefits at a particular job, they change jobs, they may have a different type of benefits, where there may be a 401k, there may be a profit sharing, there may be a cash balance. Their brother-in-law maybe sells insurance or investments. And then their brother, their sister, their mother, their whomever, they accumulate all these things, and they're not necessarily congruent. They're not consistent. It's like, well, I don't have a clear path forward.
Yeah,
I just know that I need to save more money, so I'll do this, and I'll do that, and then I'll do that, and it's all. That's how you wind up with all these different things. And it's not always bad, but man, that's exactly what you want. You want to accumulate a bunch of different things that are, like I said, not congruent, not necessarily consistent together, not necessarily working together. And it can be, the more successful you are, the more complicated it can be.
Yeah.
And when you get into passive income time, simplicity is a virtue. It's just like you're buying all this real estate, and if you want to manage real estate, great, but maybe your spouse doesn't when you graduate. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I like these, I've talked to them in the past, and not in the past. This one case comes to mind out in California, very successful, right? Older gentleman, had some children. He discovers the infinite banking concept. Oh my gosh, he's all in. And, anyway, we put some policies in force, but his problem, and he knew it, he over the years came to recognize the problem. He's been in real estate, and you have all these 1031 exchanges. Well, who do you think you're piling up that tax liability on, right? Substantial. So he's like, James, will you help me unwind this? And I'm like, sure. You got to have an exit strategy for that. It's kind of like all the cash balance plans on that Pete Whitman series that, we released here lately. It's like the most powerful part of that, I believe, is the exit strategy. So you might want to go back and listen to that part 1 and 2. I don't know what part I mentioned that in. Okay. But then, so the guy becomes a client, right? And now we're years away. We're not unwinding these things right now. It's just a problem that's on the horizon or something to deal with, okay? And I'm not necessarily, it's all bad. I'm not saying that at all. But you're piling up the 1031 exchanges, one property profits into another profit, into another profit, into another profit. It reminds me of a guy who retired as a lineman for like a utilities company and gets into the insurance business, and his theme was, I'm going to tax defer forever. Okay. Yeah, you ain't living forever, brother. Anyway, and I, really didn't get the opportunity, or I'm not going to have the opportunity to work with that guy because I fired him. Because after he became a client.
The one who had the 1031s all built up?
Yeah, it's substantial. And I assure you, the people that he works with now doesn't have the ability, the acumen, or the knowledge, or the skill, or their ability to really help him like he should be. I fired him.
Why'd you fire him?
I'm glad you asked. Because I got an email. So, he was expanding his system, and we're using different people that he had insurable interest in. It's beautiful. We don't do, in my office, Ryan's office, we don't do marginal work. Okay, we don't practice on you. We don't build things and hope it works out for you. Now, you can break anything, right? You can build a beautiful structure and break it, no question. But you got to make an effort.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Because, and it kind of ties back into the first question that I asked you. Okay. He sent an email and he said, oh, well, I'm not going to we're expanding in the system, right? With people that he has insurable interest in.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't want to go forward with that. I'm going to do something different. I'm like, well, okay. He said, I've learned the truth.
Oh. What was the truth?
That a particular structure is the only way to do infinite banking.
Yeah.
Because my base was too high, which was appropriate for him.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't even remember what it was. I'm like, have fun, partner. Bye-bye. See ya. So, I won't go off the rail too far. My point here is I believe you're doing better is because you're not focusing on all of the noise in the industry. Not just new people coming into the industry. You know, everybody wants to, you see it all over Facebook, you see it all over social media, all these entities, IMOs, recruiting, life insurance agents. You could make all this money and you could do all these things and you could help all these people. And it's like a modern day 1950s marketing method. It's just now on social media. And my point here is you're successful, and most people in this industry are successful from my experience, my observation, is the reason is they're not focused on what's in it for you. And I understand capitalism, you know, it's like you did the mechanic series, you know, the ulterior motive. You were tired of answering the same questions over and over, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not saying there's not a desire to be better, to earn more, to do better, to do more. Of course that exists, but the focus was not solely on that.
Yeah.
Making more money.
No.
You know.
I've said it before too. If the idea was just to make more money, I'd be on Wall Street or something. Or
no kidding.
Be a lawyer, personal.
Then you need a guy like me to put all those capital cash flows somewhere. And you go look on Wall Street. And I wonder how many of them really talk about it publicly, what they do privately with their own money.
Yeah, well, probably not many at all.
No. Well, yeah. All right. Well, thanks for letting me go on that rant. And then speaking of service, I got to break this out. Now, I didn't ask permission, so I'm not going to give all the details here. All right, it's Christmas, you know, the kind of gifts that I like, because I love giving gifts, no question. But every now and then, you know, you get a little gift, you know, that's unexpected. Okay, here's one. It's like from a client. So it says, hey, James, pretty happy and kind of excited today. This came in this week. He says, so I bought my first policy in December 2019 with a Big Four company. And then a couple of policies from you with another company, as you may remember. Of course I remember. So today, I just slayed the last dragon in Dragons Mortgages. And this gentleman carried substantial mortgages on, well, not just like private homes. I mean, he's a real estate guy. Anyway, they were substantial dragons. Obviously using policy loans right now. Now I see the policy as a debt obligation also. So I'm, you know, hoping to recapture the debt as cash value at some point in due course. So at least he has a realistic expectation of a timeline.
Yeah.
Right. So we're in the beginning. This is only 3 years in. Right here we are, December 2022. Right. And he slayed all of them. Now I know that is not necessarily as impressive to you because you don't know what all of his snakes and dragons were. I'm telling you, they were substantial. Okay. So trust me, take my word for it. Okay. From Nelson's book explaining the interest rate increases and inflation in the 80s, well, I think we're here again. And then he goes on, he said, so I thought I would prevent the pain of all that by leveraging the cash values and getting rid of the dragons. So I'm the banker, so I got to make my own decisions. You know, he gets to make the decisions. I love that. So he's 100% free of the snakes and dragons, but he knows he has a debt obligation to the life insurance company. Oh, wait a minute. He controls those cash flows. Oh my gosh. And it's a mutual company. So he's going to enjoy the indirect profitability of the company by directly supporting the profitability of the life insurance company. Now, is that difficult? I mean, seriously, it's not doublespeak. It's straightforward. If I own a life insurance policy with a mutual company, then I, the policyholder, get to enjoy the results or some of the results of the financial experience of the company in the form of a dividend. So if they're profitable in 1 year, they share that profitability with the policyholders through a dividend. It's their financial experience, right? So if I'm paying them a loan interest rate, they're going to be profitable. It's not a bad loan. 100% collateralized by the cash base.
Yeah.
Solid business. Okay.
In a tax-free environment, we might add.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, all of those loans, none of these loans were taxable income, right? So I was just taking a few minutes to reflect on the last 4 years. It's actually, his 4-year time period, but 3 years. We started one policy in 2019 with another company that we did not replace. Said, you know what? That is what it is, and here's how that works, and this is why you should keep it, right? And then here are the limitations. Here's what it's not. And with what you're doing and where you're at, you might consider this. And he did. And he continued. So taking a few minutes to reflect on the last 4 years, when I get to year 7 or 10, I'm thinking that'll be fun also. I bet it will. So I thought I'd let you know, and also thank you for you and your personal help, friendship, and team support. I assure you, you and the team are greatly appreciated. Guys like this and all of our clients, all of our people need service every now and then.
Yeah.
You're going to do a loan, and I don't want this to happen to you all the time, and I don't want to be put in this position. But if you live in one state and you happen to have property in overseas, or you're banking overseas, or you're traveling, I can give you scenarios. You live in Florida, but you have land in Guam or Puerto Rico or whatever, and you happen to be in France, and your agent's closing on a deal in Guam. Mm-hmm. These life insurance companies have to deal with U.S. banking laws, international banking laws, anti-money laundering. It's like you're in France trying to initiate a loan for a property in a bank in Guam, really, but you live in Florida. Do you think that would send up red flags?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, too, the life insurance companies need the agents to provide the service, too, because they're more than happy to drop the ball there. I mean, oh, my goodness.
I got an email one time that said, James, I'm talking to friends, and all my friends get these lightning fast loans from company A, B, and C, and it's like, it's not happening here. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, you didn't do this or that. I'm not trying to blame them, but it's like, no, let's get things right. That company A, B, and C do not have lightning fast loans.
Yeah.
And this or that box wasn't checked, and whether it's off, I'm not even trying to lay blame. Just like correct the problem, right?
There's plenty that needs to be done on the back end that never surfaces to make it all go smooth. But and going back to that idea of the piecemeal patchwork kind of deal, you talk about the inconsistency. I think the word is incoherence. There's an incoherence to most people's financial plan if they have one. Yeah, and it's. And there's always some degree of dependence baked in, too. It's all on the employer. And I love this. I have a client, she was at the event that we did in October, and she works for a small company. I think they do it might be heating and air type work, too. And the company was bought out. New owners are coming in, and the new owners want to bring in a new tax qualified plan program.
Sure.
And they got to propose it to the small employees, and they need a certain participation. Well, there's only like 4 employees, so they need either 3 of the 4 or all 4 to participate. Mm-hmm. And she's like, yeah, maybe I'm not interested. How about just pay me more? But you see the development in that thing, because even people who, the idea of IBC, the principles that come through in becoming your own banker, the independence, even the Christianity, the sovereignty, all of these concepts that come through in becoming your own banker, even for the people with whom those kind of things resonate, oftentimes we still don't reflect on the nature of the dependence on the employer and how integral this employer is to our own financial plan, like what we're doing for ourselves. And so I have people, and I know you do, who start IBC, pay substantial premium, and it's a learning process from there. Into the second, third, fourth round of expansion to reconsider those tax qualified plan holdings, to reconsider the ongoing contributions. And some choose to continue, and some don't. And some will partially liquidate, some will fully liquidate to pay premium. But there's you can see a fundamental shift in how someone considers these conventional patchwork piecemeal type of approaches. And I think the reason is because it's fundamentally incoherent. There's and what you get in Nelson in 92 simple little pages is this coherent plan where it's not so much a plan, like it's restrictive and you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's like a formula. There's a strategy, there's an approach, there's a methodology to it that hangs together dynamically, like for now and in 5 years and in 25 years and in 50 years. It all hangs together and it scales. Like it gets better as you go. That there's something so elegant to that. It's like who wouldn't want that?
Only the people who don't know. I don't want to say don't understand, but only the people who don't know. They're just not aware.
Yeah.
Right. Either because they have not ever, just been exposed to it, or they're making decisions based on someone else's misconception when it comes to life insurance, just because you mentioned the word life insurance, right? I don't know how many times over the years, in just finding the words to verbalize the value of a life insurance policy, a dividend paying whole life insurance policy, and all life insurance policies are not the same. All right. Permanent is permanent. And I'm not talking about universal index, universal life or variable life or any of that. And, but to verbalize the totality of the power, it's very difficult. Well, it's like a forced savings. Okay, well, if that is what, resonates with you or motivates you to continue paying a premium in those unknown times of is this company really going to do what it says it's going to do or what it's illustrated to do? Or, the future is unknown, which of course it's unknown. And it also speaks to the beauty of a life insurance, just the whole construct, the characteristics of a dividend paying life insurance policy. I don't have to know the future. I can't know the future, but I do know that more is better if it's good. Okay. And I also know that I'm going to have a need for capital in the future. I can't tell you necessarily the dollar amount that I'm going to need. We can all, going back to financial planning, we can sit down with a financial guru and use arbitrary numbers because that's exactly what it is. Well, how old are you, John? Well, I'm this age. When are you going to retire? I don't know, but we got to pick a number. Well, you can take Social Security here, here, and here, or your pension plan, 20 years in age, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's still an arbitrary number because I don't know. Well, how much you going to need in retirement? I don't know, but we got to pick an arbitrary number. Well, based on what you earn now, and your income's going to go down, but then we got to factor in inflation. Okay, well, what number what discount factor do we want to use for inflation? I don't know either. That's between now and retirement. Well, how long are you going to leave when you retire? I don't know. Another arbitrary number. What inflation rate do we use? What's your life expectancy compared to your spouse's life expectancy? I don't know. All of these arbitrary numbers go into a magical black box, and you're going to pay me $250 or $500 back in the day, and I'll spit out a financial plan. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that really ever worked. I mean, it's like that's
if it ever worked, you're generous.
How is that compelling at all? I mean, and as you were going through that too, there's a sense in which IBC even solves for the failings of those plans, because 59.5 comes around, you can finally get to the money. 72, now you've got to take the money. Well, it's got to go somewhere too.
Yeah. What? I don't know. I've said it before. I don't know how many clients I have. I have clients into their 90s now. Okay. And back in the day when they turned 70.5, 72 today, hopefully, I think it's going to change 75. There's bills in the Congress. There's no telling what the criminals in Washington are going to do. But it won't be for your benefit, okay? As much as they say it is, it's not going to be. Okay. They're like 70.5. James, I don't want this money. I don't want to pay taxes on this money. Well, you can give a certain amount away, straight from there and avoid taxes. So, okay, well, I want to leave it to my children, my grandchildren. Well, you can either take it out now and give it to them. No, you are going to take a minimum amount out now, but I don't want to. Yeah. And then there's others too that, it's like, well, I got to start taking it 59.5 because I didn't save enough money because I didn't have a plan.
Oh man.
Because it wasn't.
I had a client, I just have to say this, and likewise fired, but mid 60s, early 60s, late 50s, like just approaching, had maybe $1 million in some in tax qualified, some in non-qualified plans. Married, spouse didn't work by choice. He worked. Not, at that age, given his career history, not a super high income. I think it was like 100, 120.
They had $1 million together.
Had $1 million together.
They were doing something.
To my mind, late 50s, early 60s, and planning to live on that. I mean, it. And then they get, they fight IBC. I'm like, look, there's a way to use what you've accumulated to put it into life insurance to provide some sort of passive tax-free cash flow that'll last you longer than you're going to live. And that with Social Security will provide a good living for you, not like what you've got now. But to do that, you got to be fairly aggressive. Like we need to move the money now and start going. You could do less if you want, but all the numbers get lower. Yeah. And we're already at a low relative to what you think you've got.
There wasn't a combination approach, and I'm not, I don't get into the details of your solution.
We're going to phase the money in over time for sure, but all the money.
All of it.
He could back up, and I told him, we don't have to do all, and it's going to be over whatever it was, 7 years. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do all, but all the other numbers get lower. And we're already low.
So did you fire him, or did he just say, nah, I'm not doing that?
He kept about the internal rate of return and the policy. And I'm like, he clearly wasn't engaging in the material that we put out. Just wasn't doing what was necessary for him to understand why we would take the approach we did. And it hurts. You see where there's been no coherent plan. Mm-hmm. There's been no systematic accumulation of capital anywhere. And then the preconceived fallacious ideas about what little has been gathered, how long that will last later in life, I'm looking at it, I'm like, what you think this is going to do is not what it's going to do.
That's like, I don't know how long ago that was, but, excuse me, and I know everybody wants to beat up the market when it's down. The same people who want to jump all over the market when it's up, right? But I see daily, equities and people in their portfolios, and, every case is different. That case might have, I don't know the details of that. That might have been better for them to move everything, right? Okay, so I'm not saying that that's always the case, but whenever some people have a misunderstanding, just like this amount of money in the vehicle that it's in, all of the vehicles that it may be in is not going to deliver what you expect. There's going to be a point in time of fail in the future.
He had and the whole reason this all started was because of what's been going on in the markets lately. Yeah. He lost like 20-30% of the portfolio. That's where I was going with. So if it was $1 million, was it $1.2 million or $1.3 million, or is it now 6 That was after the fact.
Yeah.
After the hits.
Yeah.
And late 50s, early 60s, I'm like, this is happening 2-3 more times
in your retirement
while you're living in retirement when you're not generating new income.
Yeah.
And that I could just tell when I said it by the sound on the other side of the phone, that just there was not an understanding of what that meant. It's like, that means the value you think you have is open to the business cycle.
Oh, no question.
The idea that that's going to work in your favor. For someone who plans to go to a fixed income to not continue to generate cash, it's like that won't work. Like, this is the story of the impoverishment of middle class, older people who have that pension defined benefit mindset.
And the lowest interest rate environment ever.
with money supply shooting through the roof.
Now we're coming out of it artificially. Yeah. So, inflation's going to go through the roof.
Thinking that that's going to work.
And that's why they're there. Like, I got to have my money in equities because I got to outpace inflation and taxation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You get backed further and further into that
it's
fight or flight corner.
The equities guy and the financial gurus and the financial professionals, I'm not disparaging, right? It's like, you mentioned earlier that like Las Vegas, one of them has shows and dinner, and I always ask what the difference is between Wall Street and Las Vegas, right? One's in the desert. Right. And so I'm going to go to the financial guru with all these arbitrary numbers, and they're invariably going to tell me the younger I am, the more risk or exposure to risk I have to have. And as I get older, I'm going to move to a 60-40 portfolio, use these target date funds, right? And all you're doing is adjusting the mixture of equities and fixed bonds, right? Okay. So, and then too, the 4% rule is what kind of you're alluding to earlier. You got $1 million, at age 65. If you have $1 million, they have a 4% rule. That's what it takes now to not go broke and have income for the rest of your joint life. And okay. Well, the guy who invented that just had a printout that I'm going to reference. It was an extension to my 2022 October 15th talk. Anyway, that creator of the 4% rule says now it's 4.7%. And you can go on and on down that road of what kind of income can you take from this portfolio of $1 million to survive, right? And it's like, yeah, no. And then it's taxable income, not all of it, because generally everybody has a mixture, qualified, non-qualified, right? Okay. There may be a better alternative. And then when you talk to people like a year or two ago when the markets were booming and you lay this out, all of their buddies are staying in the market because they're, 10, 15, 20, 25% rates of return, right? And then you like casually, your clients understand what you're talking about and showing them, and they're like, okay, I'll come out of the market and I'll do it this way, that way, and that way. And then they get browbeaten by their colleagues. Yeah. And it's like life insurance or annuities or what? Look at the market. Now come forward 18 months or 24 months. And it's like, not only are you ahead of where you were, you're greatly ahead of where you would have been and all your colleagues. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, what are you doing? Who's that guy you're talking to? Why in Texas? It's like, you're wherever. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, wherever. But why in Texas? Look at all these financial gurus that you're jumping over to go talk to some slow-speaking, non-English individual. It's like, oh, because of this right here.
Yeah. And it's all going to happen again.
No way.
Yeah.
No, it's over. It's all the bad stuff's behind us. It's all clear skies ahead of us.
All right. That's what I got.
That's all you got, man?
Yeah.
You don't want to talk about the interest rates, the dividends? Interest rates are going up.
Yeah, so dividends will eventually come up.
Yeah, loan interest rates will go up first.
There's all sorts that we could talk about. You get me on that.
Nah, we can talk about it. It's fine, man. We've been going an hour or whatever.
Yeah, but higher than illustrated dividends are going to create problems for people with policies with very little to the base. Yeah.
No way. Okay, well, I'm good. We'll save the interest rate and dividend scales and loan interest rate for another time, huh?
For next year.
All right, thanks for listening. Yeah. I had fun.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for joining us on the Banking with Life podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and click on that little notification bell. Otherwise, join us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher for weekly content.